Hello, and welcome to the Realm of Ideas is Free to All. This is preview for episode 67, Models as Generator Process. So what we're going to explore is the nature of models as their presently provocative speculative value. So the point is to basically talk about what models are. These stem pretty much from my own investigations into architectural generation and process. But basically, it's kind of something that I think has a larger kind of like value, and it kind of has evolved over the years. Presently, that development has kind of been very much kind of developed by my readings of Whitehead. Again, and I mean, I'm reading Whitehead as an amateur. I don't profess to be a scholar. But anyway, this piece here that is in the beautiful book that Julie bought me.
I did.
100 years old, actually 101 now, was written in
Happy birthday.
1925. So
I was written in 1920.
well, that's funny. But the century, science and the modern world, the century of genius. You will observe that I do not hold induction to be in its essence the derivation of general laws. It is the divination of some character of a particular future from the known characteristics of a particular past. That's the essence of what I'm going to talk about in terms of how it pertains to models. Basically, most people, if they look about the scientific explanation of what a model is, it's a representation of a system or systems or forms or objects in an attempt to understand the natural world. That's a kind of dictionary definition. I mean, that's a general understanding. But I think what's missing is that in my case, it's a temporary state. In terms of what Whitehead is talking about in terms of the kind of inductive method, I believe that the model in itself is a speculation, just as if you would have generalizations from a series of observations. So in this case, just the same way that Whitehead is saying that these pieces are basically a divination of principles or potentials, right, from things, I would say it's the same thing. And what in that would be perspectives. So that's basically the premise, is the fact that from models, right, we actually divine principles or kind of potentials, in which case I would say a speculative value. One of the things I loved about this chapter is how Whitehead very kind of gently and thoroughly treats the idea of the nature of induction by kind of comparing Bacon's analysis, which is fairly simplistic, with that of Leonardo and of Hume. And I think in the Treatise of Human Understanding, Hume does a very good job in explaining within the passions how in which one comes to understand that which is the reasons by which you defer to speculation. So, in that case, I'd say that the temporary state, which is that which is imagined, I think that another flaw in the idea of modeling in the kind of scientific sense is the fact that it kind of is possible to kind of like be completely transparent to that which it studies, which I think is an incredibly um, bad idea to think about that. What I always find is that the incompleteness of the models is something that should be greatly appreciated. But again, given the attempt of science to overreach, their need for completeness and their kind of somewhat fear or skepticism of speculation leads them to not want to leave any stone uncovered. So that's basically what I would say is the premise. So, Julie, my loved one.
Yes, Peapod.
Say, Peapod. Say.
Well, I will be discussing, as we are, the maquette, which is a prototype for those who don't know what it is. It's a three-dimensional sketch or scale model, a rough draft of work, used in architecture, used in sculpture. In Italian, bozzetto, which is a great word.
I love those little biscuits, those bizzettos, especially the chocolate one.
I like the anise flavor.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, anise bizzettos. Yeah.
Anyway,
Roberto gets those.
Excellent. To continue, so a maquette, and we'll be talking about this on Saturday at 2:00 in the morning during
Sunday.
our broadcast. It's officially Sunday. I like to call it Saturday.
You're silly.
Is used to visualize and experiment or test ideas and forms without the creation of a full-scale structure or sculpture. I will be also talking about the fine art cartoon, the Italian modello, and because we are interdisciplinary thinkers, the model in nature, model organisms.
Look at you.
Yes.
Oh, model organisms. Oh, where's this from? Where's this from?
A Julie idea.
Oh.
This is it's from
Oh, I love
the giant brain of Julie Rauer.
So model organisms?
Yes. So
you're taking things in nature and looking at them as, I love
They're
this.
Prototypes for their species.
And each one is a temporary state.
Yes.
As it evolves.
Yes.
Nice.
We will have more, but you can just meditate on Arabidopsis, which is a little beautiful flowering mustard green plant. As is Bruce. I've attempted to alter his flowering cycles by altering his snacks. It's working beautifully.
That's a great idea.
Yes. So, and his root structure, you wouldn't believe.
Very
I am now
supplementing
Bruce with peeled baby carrots, and it's completely modified his root structure. Anyway, so Arabidopsis is the model plant by which most of plant science tests its theory on other species. And in the cladogram of plant evolution, it is a progenitor, and such as a model organism, a nematode called C. elegans is again a model organism. We will be talking about model cell lines, models of the virus template. These are organic templates. Bruce, would you like to talk about my idea?
No, I'm actually interested in the idea of the model in nature.
Yeah.
As a kind of like in terms of relates to the idea of a temporary state.
It is nature's maquette.
The idea. I mean, one of the things that's fascinating about nature and what's fascinating about Whitehead's analysis of nature is they're both seen as process, and as a result, the predilection or the I guess the failing of the idea of a static impulse, which we talked about previously with the analysis of like Aristotle and Plato, where metaphysics was kind of stuck in that kind of sense until kind of Whitehead comes along and makes ontological speculations that are basically about becoming and not simply about being. But I think in that case, one of the things I like is the fact that when I learned in architectural school, that what you would do would kind of make models and drawings. I felt that one of the things that was kind of really kind of slowing people down was the fact that their drawings and their models were basically tools to represent ideas that were not generated from the models and the drawings themselves. So I felt that the models and the drawings had tremendous kind of like provocative power, but they were never seen as a generator. They were seen as supportive of something else. They were seen supporting of a scheme of organizational thinking that was kind of done consciously or kind of prescripted or whatever. But they never, drawing never really became, and modeling building never became the generator. And next week, we talk about the symbiosis of drawing and models. We realized that potential to generate perspective and to basically build a kind of complexity or a kind of a network of perspective was the thing that I felt became an actual architectural process. And to me, I feel that if there is an organic process, if there is an organic design thinking, it comes from this process. Anyway, but I remember saying a long time ago, probably in the 80s, that people talked about architects build buildings. And I said, no, contractors build buildings. architects construct, I didn't even say build, architects construct models. But even in that case, it was still a very static process. I believe now it's actually a kind of like it's a live process. And in fact, I'll probably show some of the models that I've been working on and some of the kind of limitations
That's
that
a
I've used.
great idea.
Yeah. Okay. All
I
right.
need a
Last thoughts, my loved
cheese tea.
one?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
What is fascinating about the model in nature, analogous to the maquette in architecture, in sculpture, is it consists of what I call genetic speculations.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the epigenetic tests, meaning real time tests of an entity that is responding, evolving within its environment and the various stresses and challenges of that environment in the so-called laboratory of the natural world. So it is a living, breathing maquette. Is that not a beautiful idea?
That's a beautiful idea, because I mean, it reminds me of the fact that like one of the things that I think is only starting to kind of get appreciated now is kind of like the idea of kind of symbiogenesis from Lynn Margulis, is the fact that like we understand in large organisms the idea of evolution, but in terms of symbiogenesis, the idea of kind of horizontal gene sharing, gene transfer, and things like that is the idea of actually application or kind of like even abduction of certain genetic material, and much more of a kind of a network rather than a kind of like root structure kind of thing. So rather than a tree, more like a network is kind of much, is also kind of very much in play with this idea. So actually, I wish I could watch this one. You know, I wish I was kind of like, you know, this is going to be good. I think what's going to be interesting is I think from this, we'll probably go back and kind of, it'll generate other kind of things of other places to go. So last word.
Oh, yes. I'll be talking about the idea of a residential hotel maquette built by birds that is then altered by other animals. Preview.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
be with us 2:00 Sunday morning. The realm of ideas is free to all, and it's to the benefit of all for us to keep it that way.
Precisely.